Good morning, Guildheads. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Um, this is going to be the start of a special episode. At first, it was all gonna be one episode. And as I started writing, it turned out to be a lot more than I expected. So the episode was going to be an annotated timeline of everything that has happened so far. Everything from 20,000 years before the Exodus of the gods, all the way up until what is happening right now in Guild Wars 2 in Visions of Eternity. Um, and as I was writing and annotating the timeline, I I looked at where I'd gotten, which was to the Exodus of the gods, which is where I've written up to this recording. And right now that's 8 pages of just 8 pages of annotations. So I figured I'd probably split this up into a few episodes to make it a little more palatable. And then afterwards, do like a whole big edit of sorts. And then you'll get probably like 3 hours of yapping about timeline stuff. It's kind of incredible. Um, anyway, it was Deceptions in the Discord who sort of inspired me to do this because they were like, hey, like every time you talk about something in the lore, I realize I don't know anything about that. Like it's almost like I don't know some of the lore and some of the stories that were told in the game. And so I said, you know what? I'm just gonna go ahead and tell what we know. And obviously this isn't gonna get into like the nitty-gritty of everything. It's more it's not surface level, but it's not like fully in depth. And what I really hope is that folks listening to this will look at what, like listen thoroughly and then, comment on what they find interesting or what they want to know more about. And then we can do deep dive episodes on that. At least that's my hope. Um, so y'all get in that comment box and tell me what you think, what you want to hear more of. Um, yeah. And for now, I guess we better start because I think even these 8 pages are going to be a lot longer than I expect. Uh, roll the intro. In the beginning, the mother of dragons, Suwan, created Tyria, one of many worlds found among the mists. Before Tyria, there was only the void, and from that void was wrought the elder dragons, mindless forces of nature used to filter the void into 6 domains of magic in the All, or the Antikytheria, a symbolic representation of the world of Tyria with 6 distinct moving parts that represent the domains of magic. Over time, Suwan's children, the elder dragons, would turn from mindless filters and forces of the world to having personalities with their own wants, needs, and conflicts, which would in turn see the hostilities of these fearsome powers wrought upon the world in what would be known as the Dragon Rise. And this is where we will start. But before we can begin talking about events in history that instigated the movings and shakings of the world of Tyria, we must first look at how history is recorded. And for this, we have 2 separate records. One being the Muvelian calendar, named after Grand Patriarch Muvel, the first high priest of the Church of Dwayna. The Muvelian calendar begins its official records the moment the gods left Tyria in an event known as the Exodus, which is something of import we will discuss later. The Muvelian calendar is a 365-day year that consists of 4 seasons: Season of the Zephyr, Phoenix, Scion, and Colossus. The second account being the Canthan calendar. The differences in record keeping is in the Canthan calendar having 360 days and the year having 12 months of 30 days each. Those being Chang'ai, Zoyo, Nongkum, Zalfuan, Saita, Mikan, Ninmai, Bebeka, Suzin, Yundanfeng, Songtan, and Kainingta, respectively. Moreover, the Canton calendar begins its year zero and record keeping with the unification of the Canton clans into the Empire of the Dragon. And speaking of dragons, that's where this timeline begins. 20,000 BE, before Exodus, according to Movelian reckoning, which is what I will be using for date references from this point on. 20,000 BE is the approximation of the earliest recorded dragon rise. 10,000 BE, the last of the Giganticus lupicus, the great giants, are wiped from the face of Tyria. It is suspected that this is due directly to the last recorded dragon rise. Very little is known of the culture or history of the Giganticus lupicus, and what little the scholars do know about their physiology and settlement comes from the remains left scattered, most notably, among the Crystal Desert and the Desolation. Due to the dramatic variance in size and skeletal structure, it is believed that Giganticus lupicus refers not to one race, but several of the true giants. However, a common theme in their physiology were the fearsome claws on the hands and feet and often horned skulls. 10,000 to 1,000 BE. The exact time and order of these events are unknown. The five elder races of Tyria, Dwarves, Mursat, Jotun, Seers, and the Forgotten, formed the first ever Tyrian alliance in order to crush the threat of the Elder Dragons. However, the alliance was fragile and saw only the Mursat and the Forgotten showing up in the hour and suffering a devastating defeat. During the battle with Zaitan, the Seers create the first Shadow Stone, a seer device that allowed the storage and amplification of magic, and alongside it, the Bloodstone, which was used to seal the world's uncorrupted dragon magic and keep it from being devoured by the dragons. This would lead to the Seer-Mursat War, an ancient and millennia-long war that would end in the Seers' near extinction. The Dragon Rise also gave way to what would be known as the Great Storm among Kodan, a race of bipedal bear-like folk who have a deep reverence for Koda, the god they believe created Tyria. This tribal folk took refuge in their great halls in the north as the storm raged for what was cited as multiple Kodan lifetimes. During this, some Kodan would begin to starve, and dissent would set in, and a leader would notably say, "Fur or no fur, storm or no storm, a hunter hunts," before setting out to storm with several others to seek hunting grounds in a warmer southern land. The Kodan believed these hunters later became the Norn. During this time, another Kodan tribe would flee to Janthir and Or, respectively. Eparch, a tyrannical demon lord of the Cryptus and of Nyos, the realm of dreams, would find his way to Tyria and encounter the elder dragon Mordramoth. The demon lord would find himself saved by Isgaren and invited to join the wizard's court, but after a horrific event, be banished by Isgaren back to Nyos. Isgaren, a powerful seer who had met and gained the respect of the elder dragon Suwan, would build the World Spire, a structure that would power a mighty shield to guard Tyria from whatever threats lay in the mists beyond. During this time, he would establish the Wizard's Court, an enclave of powerful magic users ascended by Isgaren using the seer ritual of Divshia Nava, which would prove to be controversial. The six human gods, Abaddon, Doom, Balthazar, Lissa, Melandru, and Dwayna, would lay their eyes for the first time upon the lands of Tyria at the Artesian Waters, a magical font powerful enough to draw the gods from the mists to the land of Or. 1769 BE. The Forgotten, an intelligent serpentine race and stewards to the six human gods, arrive on Tyria from the Rift to begin preparing this world as newly appointed custodians for the arrival of humans. They would be referred to as the keepers of knowledge, the teachers of all things. 1680 BE. Glint, the crystalline scion of the elder dragon Kraukatoric, would find herself freed of the elder dragon's influence through a ritual performed by the Forgotten. Though she would lose most of her memories, she would be granted free will and become a bastion and protector of not only humanity, but Tyria as a whole. Through her, the elder races were able to be hidden from the elder dragons until they would finally fall back to slumber. 786 BE. The six gods appear in Cantha with the first humans in tow. Like gardeners with a new crop, They plant the seeds of humanity into the lush garden their stewards had been preparing for nearly 1,000 years. Like a weed, humans would spread across Cantha unhindered and prospering. Later, other humans would arrive from lands unknown to settle the Ekavald Forest and the Jade Sea, those humans being the Kurziks and Luxons, respectively. 510 BE. This would mark the year zero of the Canthan calendar. Before humans would arrive in Ur to step foot on the continent of Tyria, the clans of Cantha would see themselves forged into humanity's first empire under the iron fist of the mighty warlord Kang, who, at the behest of the gods, would take on the name Kaining Ta when he declared himself the first Lord Emperor of the Dragon. For what purpose the clans needed to unite is a point of contention, but it was most likely to defend against the Kurzik and Luxon encroachment on what native Canthans considered their land. Whatever the reason, Emperor Kaining Ta united the clans under one bloody banner and began the Age of the Marmoset. 464 BE. In an event that is explicitly filed categorically under Sus, Emperor Kaining Ta would leave the mortal realm during a hunting trip at the hands or hooves of a ferocious beast known as a horse. This would lead to the near eradication of equine species throughout the world of Tyria. However, this account seems to be disputed, as it seems the horse had an unexplained wound on its rump and 3 such wounds on Kaining Ta as well. Whatever the cause, Cantha would need a new Lord Emperor to continue the conquest of the empire, and the throne would pass directly to his eldest son, Yanzhou. 462 BE. 2 years after Kaining Ta's death, the Luxon tribes would unite against Emperor Yanzhou after he began a bloody campaign to quell what he labeled an insurgency in Luxon territories, slaughtering hundreds of Luxon elders in grand public executions. Under one banner, the Luxons would decide they'd had enough and attempt to secede from the Empire of the Dragon. Though they would fail to fully secede, these actions would lead to the Luxons becoming a vassal state. 459 BE. Much like the Luxons 3 years earlier, the Kurziks would be driven to unity by the belligerence of Yanzhou. Pushed to the brink by the Emperor's short temper and bloodlust, and inspired by their rivals, the Luxons, the Kurziks would unite steadfast in their home, the Ekavald Forest, and become the Empire of the Dragon's second vassal state. 205 BE. After centuries of humanity living and thriving in Cantha, humans would make their way to the lands of Ur, Istan, and the southern valleys of Alona from boats hailing from lands unknown, marking a new age of human settlement and conquest. With a firm foothold and magic abundant in these new lands, we would see some of the most durable societies in history take root here. 200 BE. This would mark the year zero of dynastic reckoning, and the first of the primeval kings would begin their rule from Faranur, the first city in Istan. The primeval kings were the first royal bloodline of Alona, and their era would be known as the Primeval Dynasty, which would stretch from the island of Istan to the valleys of Vabi, to the very northern edge of what would become the Crystal Desert. 175 BE. Marganites, a seafaring nation of humans, would appear along the coastlines north and west of Alona from the unending ocean. Their mighty vessels and mastery of the waves allowed Marganites to rule the Crystal Sea. It is speculated by historians that there may be some connection between Marganites and Luxons, but due to certain events, this knowledge would be lost to history. 115 BE. A human by the name of Doric pleads to the goddess Duena during a long and grinding war whose particulars the record does not bother to preserve. Duena answers with a credo, a new set of tenets for her faithful, as said here in the scriptures of Duena. And when the world rang with the clanging of swords, and did fire fall from the skies, Duena, goddess of life and air, heard the wailings and pleas of the weak. And when the rumblings of war did not cease, came her charge, Doric, who did prostrate himself at her feet. And cast she now a glance upon the war-torn lands and wasted flesh of the fallen, and with tears upon her cheek did lay her gentle hands upon the prostrate man. Then saith she unto him and all her charges, Lay down thy weapons, And as I have done unto ye, so ye must do for your brethren. Offer protection to the weak, give solace and shelter to those who need it. Be ye a salve for the wounded. For I am your goddess, and I will give blessings to all who follow these teachings. From the Scriptures of Dwayne. 100 BE. Humans would settle Ascalon in the High Plains and, in the tidy phrasing of the record, drive the Char north out of their briefly conquered lands. From the human vantage, the Char were squatters on land that was always meant to be settled. From the Char vantage, this was a homeland, and the humans were the invaders. In the same stretch, Doric is crowned king of the Tyrian human lands from Ascalon, making him the first true monarch of humanity on the continent proper, and in that same year, he would receive the first Canthan ambassador. 48 BE. Doom is deposed in a dispute over resurrection, and Dwayna's demigod son, Grinth, rises to power and receives his first follower in recorded scripture. Balthazar and Melandru would also have their scriptures recorded in this year. Came then Desmina, scorned and exiled by her people, and in her misery and wretchedness did Desmina curse the gods for abandoning all who, like her, admired power and ambition. And asketh she, Where is the God whom I may give my undying devotion? Where is the God to whom I may beg revenge against those who scorn me? And rumbled then the earth from far below, and with a terrible groan split open. The ground grew white with frost and ice, and from forth the frozen earth spilled the rotted skeletal minions of Grinth. Appeared then the god, and with bony hands outstretched welcomed the girl into his fold. Saith he, I am your god. Follow where I lead, come whence I call, and the rotted corpses of the dead will be yours to control. And swearing allegiance in life and beyond, did Desmina thence become the god's first follower. From the Scriptures of Grinth. For weeks did the battle rage on, and those who had taken up the mantle of war grew wary, and their courage began to falter. Then did Balthazar, god of war and fire, appear to the soldiers, carrying with him a grand sword that did glow with such brilliance it blinded any who looked upon it. When he spoke, his voice was like thunder, and it shook the ground with force. Then saith he, Lift up thy weapons, for you are my soldiers, and must you be steadfast, strong, and brave of heart. They who neither hesitate nor stumble shall be rewarded. Then shall you have glory. Then shall your deeds be remembered for eternity. And then did release from his sword 100,000 flames, which encircled the soldiers. For this was the fire of courage, and forthwith did they follow the god into battle without fear or hesitation. Thence was the enemy struck down. From the Scriptures of Balthazar. Was that a tribe of godless humans wandered the land? Where camped did they lay waste, senselessly destroying everything nearby. And so the tribe set out to find another camp, when suddenly sprouted a wall of thorny branches which blocked their exit. Then saith Ewan, leader of the tribe, Know ye our ways. Whosoever does magic in this tribe shall be put to death. Yet none comes forward. Then from the earth grows forth a large tree, and unfurling its branches reveals the upper torso of a woman. Saith she, I am Melandru, mother of the earth and nature. Henceforth I bind ye to these lands. When they suffer, so shall ye suffer. And as she saith, so was it done. From their limbs sprouted branches, and the blood their veins was turned to the sap of trees. Then was Ewan and his tribe converted, and became they stewards of nature. From the Scriptures of Melandru. 45 BE. We would see a continuing trend of the gods being active amongst the mortals they brought through the mists to the land of Tyria, with Lyssa's scripture being recorded in this year. And it was that a stranger came to the village of Rin, seeking shelter and employment. Though young in years, her body was stooped and twisted, her flesh eaten by disease. Ye have the mark of the plague upon ye, said a citizen named Galric. Leave this place, lest you sicken our people. I've lost my family and my home, cried the desperate woman. Have you no heart? yet each person in turn did look away. Then, from the crowd came a young woman, Sarah. She looked upon the woman with pity. "If you need help," said Sarah, "I will give it." And Sarah did approach the gnarled, bent woman and did offer her a helping hand. Then the sickened woman pulled from her body the robes of the plague, revealing herself to be the goddess Lissa. The people of Ren fell to their knees, begging Lissa's mercy. But lifting Sarah gently, saith she, "True beauty is measured not by appearance, but by actions and deeds. Many have eyes, but few have seen. Of all here you saw the beauty behind the illusion, and you alone shall be blessed with my gifts." Scriptures of Lissa. 1 BE. In their scouring of Tyria for magical artifacts to hide away in their reliquaries, the six would eventually stumble upon the Bloodstone, which would eventually be widely regarded by everyone as a bad move. Abaddon, friend of humanity, decides that the gift of magic isn't just for the gods, and that humanity should have access to this font of unlimited power. This laissez-faire approach to the raw material of creation and destruction would have completely expected consequences and lead to a bloody outbreak of wars amongst all of humanity. Quickly, humans found themselves at the edge of extinction due to the destruction wrought by human greed and powerful magic. And this led to King Doric making the trek from Ascalon to Ara and begging the six to rescind the gift of magic. To do this, they required a blood tithe from King Doric to reseal the magic in the Bloodstone, entrusting his bloodline to protect it from humanity and others. Then, to ensure no one would have access to power like this again, the six split the stone into 5 pieces and tossed it into the mighty volcano in the Ring of Fire Islands, known as Abaddon's Mouth. However, one of the six did not like the idea of sealing away magic, even if it meant the extinction of the weak. Abaddon would begin his treachery against the other 5 with his followers, the Marganites, and would have his scripture written of the first Marganite. And so it came to pass that Jadoth, being persecuted by the horrific forgotten armies and hounded from his home, did seek refuge among the cooling mists of the Crystal Sea. Untold weeks passed as Jadoth huddled in his sanctuary, with nothing to see save the endless ripples of the boundless ocean. On the 51st day of his exodus, a frightful sight manifested before Jadoth's eyes, the unmistakable shape of forgotten warships upon the horizon's shimmering edge. And prayed Jadoth, "Abaddon, Lord of everlasting depths, keeper of secrets, open mine eyes and bestow upon me the knowledge of the abyss, that I might smite mine enemies and send them to the watery depths." An unsettling silence swept across the waves. The twilight sky shattered, and stars streaked down upon the forgotten armada. The seas boiled and ruptured and gave birth to a maelstrom from which not even light could escape, and transforming the sky above into a midnight void. And thus was magic gifted to Jadoth, chosen of Abaddon, the first of the Marganites. From the Scriptures of Abaddon. And shortly thereafter, Abaddon would begin his war against the other 5 gods by sending his army of Marganites to assault the gates of heaven. 0 AE, after Exodus. However, this rebellion would be short-lived, with the Marganites and Abaddon being imprisoned in the realm of torment, also known as the Nightmare Realm, a part of the mists where individuals of twisted evil or corruption are banished to spend eternity in torment. After his banishment, the verdant coastline and bountiful crystal sea would be tarnished, turning into the crystal desert, and southern sands turned to sulfurous wastes known as the Desolation. Marganite civilization would collapse. The remaining 5 gods would look upon what they wrought upon humanity and come to the decision to leave the world of Tyria and humanity to their own devices. Before they would leave, however, a magical ritual and 3 holy artifacts needed to incite it would be left with Ascalon and its king: a holy crown, Balthazar's sword Sahothin, and its twin Magdare. The 5 gods would then step into the mist to continue their governance of their respective realms. However, they did not fully sever their ties with Tyria, and their magic would still be felt for centuries to come. This event would become known as the Exodus of the Gods. And there we have it, y'all. Part 1. Um, Part 2 will probably be a little longer. I plan on covering all of the events of the original trilogy, Eye of the North, and then, Guild Wars Beyond. Then in the 3rd installment of this, timeline series, I'll cover the books and then everything that's happened in Guild Wars 2, and I think that'll be a really good way to do it. If you have any questions or concerns, corrections, thoughts, whatever, please let us know. We'd love to hear it. We also did just launch our website, foiblesfair.com, foiblesfair.com. So check that out. It's pretty simple. It's just a cute, cool website to listen to our podcast on. And also be sure to check out the respective Twitch channels of both Eagle and I. We're going to be doing Foibles Fair live here soon, and then we'll be editing that and then putting it on the podcast. But if you're interested in watching us try to do it live, well, that's where you can find us. Anyway, thanks again. Thanks for listening. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Peace.